Just as Joanna thought he had everything under control, he walked in on his wife and brother in a passionate embrace. The very people he trusted most had been orchestrating his downfall for years. Joanna Landry stood at his office window on the 20th floor of the Landry Construction headquarters, surveying the Boston skyline like a king overlooking his domain. At 45, he had built an empire from nothing but determination and ruthless ambition. His reflection in the glass showed a man whose expensive suit could not quite hide the construction worker's build beneath. Broad shoulders and calloused hands that reminded him daily of where he came from. His executive assistant, Ava, knocked and entered with her usual efficiency. "Mr. Landry, the board members are waiting in the conference room." "Let them wait another 5 minutes," Joanna replied, not turning around. It was a power move he had learned early in his career. Make them anticipate you. Make them remember who is in charge. The quarterly earnings report sat on his desk, showing numbers that would make most CEOs envious. Landry Construction had secured 3 major development projects in downtown Boston, adding to their already impressive portfolio. Joanna had personally negotiated each deal, leveraging relationships he had built over 2 decades of climbing the corporate ladder. His phone buzzed with a text from Heather. "Don't forget the Twins lacrosse game at 6. Joanna's jaw tightened imperceptibly. He never missed a game. Unlike his own father, whose early death had forced 18-year-old Joanna to become both brother and father to Gerard. The memory of those early years fueled him, working construction during the day, attending night classes, and somehow finding time to make sure Gerard had everything he needed for college. "Tell them I will be there in 2 minutes, he told Ava, adjusting his tie and his reflection. The Italian silk felt smooth against his fingers, a far cry from the second-hand polyester he had worn to his first construction job. The board meeting went exactly as Joanna had orchestrated. He dominated the room with his presence, firing down weak proposals and demanding better results. When Samuel Matthews, one of the older board members, suggested scaling back their expansion plans, Joanna's response was swift and decisive. "Samuel," he said, his voice carrying that dangerous calm that his employees had learned to fear, "if you are not comfortable with growth, perhaps it is time to discuss your retirement options." The threat hung in the air, wrapped in corporate courtesy but sharp as a blade. Later that afternoon, Joanna arrived home to find Heather in the kitchen, her perfectly maintained appearance matching their showcase home in the exclusive Brookline neighborhood. She wore her usual mask of domestic contentment, but Joanna had built his success on reading people's tells. "The boys are already at practice with Gerard," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I made dinner reservations at Despair for 7:30. Joanna washed her hands as she arranged flowers in a vase, steady, practiced movements that revealed nothing. "Cancel them," he said. "I want to watch the boys play. We can order in." Something flickered across Heather's face, disappointment, annoyance, but it was gone so quickly that anyone else might have missed it. Joanna did not miss things, ever. The drive to the school sports complex gave him time to reflect on his carefully constructed life. He had met Heather during his final year of night school at Boston University. She had been studying psychology, all grace and old money, while he worked days laying foundations and evenings pursuing his business degree. Their marriage had raised eyebrows among her social circle, but Joanna had already shown signs of the success to come. At the lacrosse field, Joanna took his usual spot in the bleachers, noting how other parents gave him a respectful berth. He watched Gerard running drills with the team, the younger Landry brothers' confident stance with the players masking something Joanna could not quite place. The twins, Shelby and Julian, moved across the field with natural athleticism. Joanna studied their faces as he often did, looking for traces of himself. They had his height, his build, but something about their features had always nagged at him, a glimmer of recognition he could not quite place. After practice, Gerard jogged over, still carrying the easy charm that had made him popular in school. "Clay, didn't expect to see you here today." "I make time for family," Joanna replied, emphasizing the last word slightly. "How about dinner? The boys can tell me about the upcoming tournament." Gerard's smile wavered for a fraction of a second. "Actually, I have got some game footage to review." "Rain check." Joanna nodded, filing away his brother's reaction for future reference. "Sure thing, coach," he said, using Gerard's nickname with just a touch of mockery. That evening, Joanna sat in his home office reviewing company documents while half listening to Heather's phone conversation in the hallway. Her voice was hushed, careful. "Another late meeting?" she asked later, not looking up from her phone as Joanna gathered his keys. The question carried a weight he could not ignore. "The Cambridge project is behind schedule," he replied smoothly, leaning in to kiss her cheek. Her slight flinch did not escape his notice. Nothing did. He felt the tension in her body, saw the way her fingers tightened around her phone. As he drove toward the office, Joanna's mind worked with the same precision that had made him successful. Every detail, every slight reaction, every careful deflection, they were all pieces of a puzzle he had not known he was solving, not yet. The Boston Harbor Hotel's grand ballroom hummed with the artificial warmth of wealthy people pretending to care about charitable causes. Joanna moved through the crowd at the annual Children's Hospital Gala with practiced ease, shaking hands, making promises, and closing deals disguised as donations. He had learned long ago that charity events were just business meetings with better wine. His sister Flora's approach was not part of his carefully choreographed evening. She wore a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than his first car, but her usual poised expression was marred by worry lines around her eyes. "Clay," she said, touching his arm with manicured fingers. "We need to talk about the family reunion next month." Her voice carried an urgency that made him take notice. Joanna guided her to a quiet corner, away from prying ears. "What is wrong, Flora?" "I overheard Mom talking to Aunt Courtney about doing one of those ancestry DNA reveals, for entertainment." She twisted her champagne flute nervously. "But that is not really why I needed to talk to you." Joanna's laugh was calculated to ease her tension. "Sounds harmless enough. What is really on your mind?" Flora glanced around before continuing, her voice dropping even lower. "I saw something yesterday, Heather and Gerard at the Starbucks on Newberry Street." Joanna maintained his smile, but his eyes turned cold, calculating. "Having coffee is not a crime, Flora." They seemed intimate. Flora pressed on, clearly uncomfortable but determined. The way they were sitting, how they were looking at each other. It was not innocent, Clay. Joanna's mind was already running scenarios, calculating possibilities, but his exterior remained perfectly controlled. "I am sure you misunderstood," he said, his tone carrying a finality that made Flora step back slightly. "Maybe," she conceded, but her eyes said otherwise. "Just be careful, okay?" Joanna watched her disappear back into the crowd, his mind already formulating plans. He spent the next hour moving through the gala with mechanical precision, his public face never betraying the calculations happening behind it. Later that night, Joanna stood in the darkness of his bedroom watching Heather's sleeping form. Her phone sat on the nightstand, innocently dark. He moved silently, years of construction work having taught him how to control his substantial frame. The phone unlocked easily. He had watched her enter the code countless times. Another detail filed away out of habit. The tracking app installation took less than 5 minutes. Joanna worked with the efficiency of a man who had learned early that hesitation meant failure. Once finished, he replaced the phone exactly as he had found it. In his home office, Joanna placed a call to his company's security chief, Marcia Morrison. "I need a name," he said without preamble. "Someone discreet, thorough, and not afraid to get their hands dirty." Morrison's response was immediate. "Brendan Becker, former military intelligence, works private now. He is expensive, but worth it." "Money is not an issue," Joanna replied. "Send me his contact information." The next morning, Joanna met Becker in a private room at his club. The investigator was a lean, unremarkable man who could vanish in a crowd. Exactly what Joanna needed. "I need surveillance on 2 people," Joanna said, sliding over 2 photos. "My wife and my brother. I want to know everywhere they go, everyone they talk to, every time they so much as look at each other." Becker studied the photos with professional detachment. "Any particular suspicions I should focus on?" "Everything," Joanna replied, his voice carrying the same tone he used in hostile takeovers. "Every detail, no matter how small. I want to know things about them they do not even know about themselves." "This level of surveillance will not be cheap," Becker warned. Joanna removed an envelope from his jacket. "Consider this a retainer. The same amount every week plus expenses. I want daily reports, photos, recordings, everything." After Becker left, Joanna sat alone in the club's leather chair, his mind already gaming out scenarios. He had built his empire by anticipating problems and crushing them before they could grow. If his wife and brother thought they could destroy what he had built, they were about to learn just how ruthless Joanna Landry could be. The next 2 weeks progressed with Joanna's trademark precision. He maintained his usual schedule, attending board meetings, visiting construction sites, and appearing at the twins' lacrosse practices. To the outside world, nothing had changed, but beneath his composed exterior, Joanna was laying the groundwork for his investigation. Brendan Becker proved worth every penny of his substantial fee. His first reports arrived via encrypted email, providing detailed surveillance of both Heather and Gerard's movements. The initial findings were not conclusive, but hinted at carefully coordinated schedules. Heather's counseling appointments and Gerard's practice sessions seemed to have convenient overlaps. "The Cambridge project needs my personal attention," Heather would say on these days, her voice practiced and smooth. "These kids' futures depend on proper college counseling." Joanna would nod, play the role of the distracted husband, all while documenting every lie, every careful deception. He noticed how she always wore her blue sapphire earrings on these days, his birthday gift to her 3 years ago. The irony was not lost on him. One evening, Joanna sat across from Dr. Omar Dixon at their regular poker game. The other players had left, leaving just the two of them nursing expensive scotch. "I need access to some medical records," Joanna said, laying his cards on the table, literally and figuratively. "From about 12 years ago, Massachusetts General Hospital." Omar's expression showed concern. "Clay, you know I cannot. Remember that situation with the prescription pad last year?" Joanna interrupted, his voice casual but carrying an edge. "The one I helped make go away. Consider this repayment." The color drained from Omar's face. "What records?" "Paternity test registered to Heather Palmer Landry." The records arrived the next day in a plain manila envelope. Joanna read them in his office, each word burning into his brain like acid. The test had been conducted shortly after the twins' birth, a fact he had never known about. The results were inconclusive due to sample contamination, but the very existence of the test spoke volumes. Joanna remembered Gerard's unexpected career change 5 years ago. His brother had been coaching at a prestigious private school in New Hampshire, making good money and building a solid reputation. Then suddenly he announced he was taking a job at the twins' school. "Families should stick together," Gerard had said at the time, clapping Joanna on the shoulder. "Plus, I get to coach my favorite nephews." The memory made Joanna's hands tighten on his desk until his knuckles went white. Every conversation, every family dinner, every moment of the past 12 years took on new meaning. He thought about the twins' features, the ones that had always nagged at him, the ones that did not quite match his own. They had Gerard's nose, his smile. Joanna accessed the tracking app on Heather's phone, reviewing the location history. The patterns were clear, precise, damning. He compared them with Gerard's practice schedules, building a timeline of deception that stretched back years. His phone buzzed with a text from Gerard. "Drinks tonight? Need to discuss the team's strategy for the tournament." Joanna stared at the message, imagining his brother typing it, perhaps sitting in the same hotel room where he met Heather. His response was carefully casual. "Deadline for the Cambridge project." The lie came easily. He had learned from the best, apparently. Joanna spent the evening instead meeting with his lawyer, Tom Chun, in a private room at his club. "I need everything ready," Joanna instructed. "Divorce papers, custody arrangements, financial divisions, but nothing gets filed until I give the word." "The prenup is solid," Chun assured him. "But if you are planning what I think you are planning, timing will be crucial." Joanna's smile did not reach his eyes. "Timing is everything, Aiden. And when I move, it needs to be decisive. No warnings, no second chances." That evening, Joanna stood in his home office reviewing Becker's preliminary findings. The initial reports were thorough, detailed logs of movements, meetings, and patterns that were beginning to emerge. While not yet conclusive, they painted a picture that made his jaw clench. His phone buzzed with a text from Heather. "Coming to bed soon?" Joanna typed back a response about work keeping him late, though his mind was already racing with next steps. In his office, another encrypted email from Becker waited, containing the day's surveillance notes and photographs. He thought about Flora's words at the gala, about the way Heather flinched at his touch, about Gerard's convenient career moved to be closer to family. Each piece was a part of a puzzle he was only beginning to assemble. Joanna Landry had not built an empire by being naive. He had learned early that success belonged to those who saw threats coming and eliminated them before they could strike. Now, watching his carefully constructed world with new eyes, he began to formulate a plan. The investigation was just beginning, but Joanna had always been very, very good at finishing what he started. Joanna sat in his private office at Landry Construction, methodically reviewing Becker's latest surveillance reports. The investigators' work had been impeccable, providing a detailed chronicle of betrayal that made Joanna's blood boil. Every Tuesday and Thursday meeting at the Harbor View Hotel was documented with time-stamped photos and surveillance notes. "Mr. Landry," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Wheeler from the forensics lab is here to see you." "Send him in," Joanna said, closing the surveillance folder on his laptop. Lola Wheeler entered carrying a manila envelope. The forensics specialist's usual confident demeanor seemed subdued. "I have those results." "You want it, Clay?" Joanna gestured toward the chair across from his desk. "Tell me." "I ran the test 3 times to be certain," Wheeler said, pulling out several documents. "The DNA comparison leaves no room for doubt. The probability of paternity is 99.99%. Gerard is their biological father." Joanna's face remained impassive, but his fingers pressed into the leather armrests of his chair. "In a timeline based on genetic markers and the boy's age, conception would have occurred around 12 years ago," Wheeler added, hesitating. "I'm sorry, Clay." "Don't be. You've done your job." Joanna took the envelope. "I'll need your testimony when the time comes." After Wheeler left, Joanna accessed his private banking terminal. With practiced efficiency, he began transferring company assets to offshore accounts he had established weeks earlier. Each transaction was carefully structured to appear routine, a skill he'd honed during hostile takeovers. His phone buzzed with a message from his mother, Mildred. "Dear, I'm so excited about the family reunion. Courtney says the DNA presentation will be such fun. Would you help me set it up? You know I'm hopeless with technology." Joanna's lips curved into a cold smile as he typed his reply. "Of course, Mom. I'd be happy to help with the technical aspects." He opened another file on his laptop, this one containing financial records his private investigator had uncovered. Heather's betrayal went beyond the personal. As his mother's financial advisor, she had been systematically siphoning money from Mildred's accounts, nearly $300,000 over the years. The twins' college funds, which his mother had so proudly established, had been part of her scheme. "Sir," his assistant's voice interrupted, "Mrs. Landry is here. She says she needs to discuss the twins' college applications." "Send her in." Joanna minimized the financial records, but left them accessible. Heather entered, wearing the polished appearance of a professional school counselor. "Clay, we need to talk about the boys. Early decision applications. The deadlines are." "Sit down, Heather." Joanna's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. She hesitated before taking the seat Wheeler had vacated. "Is everything all right?" "We'll discuss the college applications later," Joanna said, his voice neutral. He watched her leave, knowing she had no idea he'd already uncovered her theft from his mother's accounts. $300,000 systematically siphoned over 5 years. The evidence was safely documented, ready to be deployed at the perfect moment. "Clay, I can explain. Can you explain this too?" He opened another document, the DNA test results. Heather's carefully maintained facade cracked. Her hands began to shake. "How did you get that out of my office?" Joanna's voice was deadly quiet. "Go home. Enjoy your comfortable life while you can." "And Heather," he looked up from the documents, "don't bother with those college applications. I'm sure Gerard can handle the boys' education expenses now." After she left, Joanna made another call. "Tom, I need you to update my mother's inheritance documents. Remove all non-immediate relatives. And I want restraining orders prepared, financial and personal, against both Heather and Gerard." The rest of the afternoon was spent in meticulous preparation. Joanna reviewed security camera footage from the Harbor View Hotel, documented every meeting between his wife and brother, and compiled evidence of financial misconduct. Each piece was carefully organized, building an unassailable case. His phone buzzed again, Gerard this time. "Clay," Heather seemed upset. "Everything okay?" Joanna stared at the message, imagining his brother's false concern. He didn't respond. Instead, he opened his calendar and began planning the final act of his revenge. The family reunion was 2 weeks away. Everything had to be perfect. The Boston Harbor Hotel's event coordinator met Joanna in the grand ballroom, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Landry, we've arranged everything according to your specifications. The technical team will be here tomorrow to set up the presentation screens." Joanna surveyed the space where 300 Landry family members would witness his carefully orchestrated revelation. "The acoustics in here will carry to every corner, crystal clear, sir. And the screens will be visible from every table." "Good." Joanna checked his phone. Another message from Heather about the twins' tournament schedule. She was still trying to maintain their routine, unaware that he'd already arranged for the boys to return early. The coordinator hesitated. "Sir, about the last-minute change to the seating arrangement. Is there a problem?" No, she said quickly, recognizing the warning in his tone. "Everything is arranged. Mrs. Pommel Landry and Mr. Gerard Landry will be seated exactly where you specified." Joanna nodded, mentally reviewing his plan. The seating wasn't arbitrary. He'd positioned them for maximum impact. When the DNA results appeared on screen, every detail had been considered, every contingency planned for. His phone buzzed again, Flora this time. "Clay, are you sure about this?" "The boys." He cut off her message. Flora's concern was irrelevant. She'd play her part, whether she wanted to or not. He'd arranged for her to make a specific call at a specific time, right after the DNA results played. Joanna left the ballroom and took the elevator to the 4th floor. The hotel security office was expecting him. "Mr. Landry, we've set up the monitors as requested." The chief of security showed him the surveillance feeds. One screen showed the hallway leading to room 412, Gerard and Heather's usual meeting place. Another displayed the service entrance where the twins would arrive. "The timing has to be precise," Joanna instructed. "When my sons appear in the lobby, I want to know immediately." Back in his office, Joanna reviewed the final preparations. The modified DNA presentation was ready, slides of innocent family history leading to the devastating reveal. He'd hired an independent lab to verify the results, ensuring there could be no doubt. His phone lit up with a text from Gerard, getting nervous about the family reunion. "Mom's gone all out this year." Joanna's response was calculated, looking forward to it. Should be quite revealing. The next message was from Heather. "Clay, about the college funds. We need to talk." He left it unanswered. Let her worry. Let them both worry. 12 years of deception were about to unravel in front of the entire family. A notification popped up on his phone. The tracking app showed Heather's location. Right on schedule, she was heading to the Harbor View Hotel. Gerard's practice would be having its convenient break soon. Joanna reviewed the updated inheritance documents one final time. His mother's lawyer had followed his instructions perfectly. All non-immediate relatives would be excluded. The timing of filing these updates had to be precise, just like everything else in his plan. "Mr. Landry," his assistant's voice interrupted, "your mother is on line 1. She's asking about the DNA presentation again. Tell her everything's handled. The technical team is setting up tomorrow." Joanna continued typing. He glanced at the family photos on his desk, images of a life built on lies. Soon those photos would be replaced. The twins would understand eventually. They were Landrys, after all, even if not in the way he'd thought. They would learn that in this family, betrayal carried consequences. The Boston Harbor Hotel's grand ballroom hummed with conversation as 300 relatives gathered for their annual reunion. Joanna stood near the main entrance, watching his carefully positioned players take their places. Mildred Landry, resplendent in her favorite blue dress, held court near the main table. "Joanna, darling, the screens look magnificent. Are you sure you don't want to sit with us during the presentation?" "I need to supervise the technical aspects, Mom," Joanna said, kissing her cheek. "Wouldn't want anything to go wrong." He caught Heather's eye across the room. She sat with Gerard at their assigned table, both maintaining the facade of normal family relations. Joanna noted how they carefully avoided looking at each other for too long. His phone vibrated, a message from hotel security. The twins had arrived early from their tournament, just as planned. They waited in the lobby, unaware of their role in the evening's events. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please take your seats. The Landry family DNA presentation is about to begin." Clay moved to the back of the room near the AV controls. The lights dimmed, and the first slides appeared on the massive screens. Innocent family photos, genealogical charts, amusing historical anecdotes. He watched Heather and Gerard relax slightly as the presentation progressed. And now, the MC continued. We have some exciting recent discoveries about the Landry lineage. Joanna pressed a button on his laptop. The screens changed, displaying medical charts and DNA test results. The room fell silent as the information registered. Oh my God, someone gasped. Mildred collapsed into her chair, her face ashen. Gerard shot to his feet, but Joanna was already moving toward the door. He knew Flora would be making her call now, right on schedule. The chaos erupted exactly as he'd anticipated. Shouts of confusion and anger filled the ballroom. Joanna walked calmly through the service entrance, nodding to his sons, who waited with their packed bags. Near room 412, Shelby and Julian stood frozen, their faces a mix of shock and betrayal. They'd seen the presentation on the lobby screens, another detail Joanna had arranged. Dad, Shelby started, but Joanna held up his hand. Wait here, he ordered. Your mother and uncle have some explaining to do. He could hear Flora's voice carrying down the hallway as she made her staged phone call to Heather. Right on cue, the elevator dinged, and Heather burst out, Gerard close behind her. They stopped short at the sight of Joanna and the twins. The moment crystallized, everyone in position for the final scene of Joanna's carefully orchestrated drama. 12 years of lies and betrayal had led to this moment in this hallway. Joanna smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. Everything had unfolded exactly as planned. Now it was time for the reckoning. The tension in room 412 of the Harbor View Hotel could have been cut with a knife. Heather stood frozen near the window, her perfectly manicured fingers gripping the back of a chair. Gerard had positioned himself between her and Joanna, a futile gesture of protection that made Joanna's lips curve into a cold smile. Shelby and Julian remained by the door, their packed bags at their feet. The twins' faces reflected a mix of shock, betrayal, and dawning comprehension. From the ballroom below, the sounds of chaos echoed through the hotel's elegant corridors. 12 years, Joanna said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of accumulated betrayal. 12 years of lies. Dad, Shelby started, but Joanna raised his hand, silencing him with a gesture. Gerard took a step forward. Clay, let me explain. Explain? Joanna's laugh held no humor. Explain how you slept with my wife and passed off your children as mine? Explain how you both watched me raise them, knowing the truth the entire time? Or should we discuss the money you've been stealing from our mother? Heather's face went even whiter. The money was for the boys' future. I was protecting them. Protecting them? Joanna's voice remained deadly calm. You were embezzling from their grandmother, $300,000 siphoned from accounts you managed as her financial advisor. That's not protection, Heather. That's fraud. We never meant, Gerard began. Joanna cut him off. Pack your things, he told the twins. Your grandmother wants her money back. All of it. His gaze shifted to Gerard. As for college, I'm sure Coach can handle that now. Julian took a hesitant step forward. But Dad, I'm still your father. Joanna's voice softened fractionally when addressing the boys. That hasn't changed. But these two, he gestured to Heather and Gerard. They're done being part of our family. Heather moved away from the chair, reaching for the twins. Boys, please, everything I did was for you. Don't. Joanna's command froze her in place. You've lost the right to touch them. The police will be very interested in those financial records, Heather. Elder abuse carries serious penalties in Massachusetts. You wouldn't, Gerard protested. Not to the mother of your what? Joanna's eyes blazed. Choose your next words very carefully, little brother. You're already facing charges for abuse of authority. A coach having an affair with a student's parent. Your career in education is over. The twins exchanged glances, their world visibly crumbling around them. Shelby picked up his bag, his movements mechanical. What happens now? Now, Joanna said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. You boys go wait in my car while I finish this conversation. Isabella, he called out, and his personal security chief appeared in the doorway. Escort my sons to the parking garage. Once the twins were gone, Joanna's facade of calm cracked slightly, revealing the rage beneath. Did you laugh about it, Gerard? All those years I put you through college, worked my fingers to the bone to give you opportunities. Were you already sleeping with my wife? It wasn't like that, Heather protested. We fell in love. Love. Joanna spat the word like poison. Let's talk about love, shall we? Let's talk about how you used my mother's love and trust to steal from her. Let's talk about how you both watched me love those boys, knowing they weren't mine. He pulled out his phone, showing them the surveillance photos. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Did you think I wouldn't notice? I notice everything. What do you want? Gerard asked, his voice hoarse. Want? Joanna's smile was terrifying in its calmness. I want you both to suffer. I want you to lose everything, just like you tried to take everything from me. And thanks to your own actions, I won't have to lift a finger. The evidence of financial fraud is already with the authorities. The school board will receive documentation of your affair tomorrow morning. You've destroyed yourselves. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. I've updated mother's inheritance documents. Non-immediate relatives are excluded. Fitting, isn't it? The following weeks unfolded exactly as Joanna had planned. His lawyer, Tom Chun, orchestrated a devastating divorce filing that left no room for negotiation. The evidence of Heather's financial fraud against Mildred formed the centerpiece of their strategy. The DA is pushing for criminal charges, Chun reported during their morning meeting. Elder financial abuse is their current focus, but they're also investigating fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Joanna nodded, reviewing the latest court documents. And the school board? Gerard resigned this morning. The board was prepared to terminate him for moral turpitude and abuse of his position. They're updating their policies on staff-parent interactions. The twins had chosen to stay with Joanna, their decision influenced heavily by the revelation of their mother's theft from their grandmother. The boys spent hours with Mildred. Their relationship with their grandmother deepened as they processed their mother's betrayal. She seemed so perfect. Shelby confided to Joanna one evening. Mom always knew exactly what to say, how to make everything look right. Joanna watched his son, because, regardless of biology, these were his sons, struggle with the weight of discovery. Appearances can deceive. That's why truth matters more than facades. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, backed by irrefutable evidence. Heather's attempts to claim alimony were crushed by the documentation of her financial crimes. The criminal investigation into her management of Mildred's accounts effectively ended her career in financial counseling. Your mother called again. Julian mentioned during dinner that she wants to explain. There is nothing to explain, Joanna replied, his voice firm but not unkind. She made her choices. Now she faces the consequences. News of the scandal shook their social circle. Joanna's ruthless response to the betrayal became a cautionary tale in Boston's upper echelons. Some called him cruel, but none could deny the justice of his actions. Gerard's fall was equally spectacular. His resignation from the school was just the beginning. Joanna's evidence of the long-term affair with a student's parent, combined with the DNA revelation, made him unemployable in education. Coach Stevens is taking over the team, Shelby reported after practice. Nobody mentions Uncle Gerard anymore. Joanna watched his sons adapt to their new reality with a mixture of pride and determination. They were strong, these boys he had raised. The betrayal had shaken them, but not broken them. Mildred's recovery from the shock was slower. Joanna visited her daily, managing her affairs personally. I should have seen it, she said one afternoon. All those transactions Heather insisted were necessary. She fooled all of us. Mom, Joanna assured her, though his tone held no forgiveness, she will never hurt you again. The financial investigation expanded as forensic accountants uncovered the full scope of their schemes. The $300,000 was just the beginning. She had manipulated accounts, falsified documents, and abused her position of trust systematically. 1 year later, Joanna sat in his renovated home office surrounded by new family photos. The old ones, tainted by lies, had been removed months ago. These images showed him with his sons at their high school graduation, both boys proud in their caps and gowns, their smiles genuine. Despite the year's hardships, the boys had earned scholarships to Boston College. Their academic performance was undiminished by the family trauma. Joanna had matched their scholarship amounts, ensuring their education would be secured by honest means. Ready, Dad? Julian called from downstairs. Wednesday night dinner with Mildred had become their weekly tradition, a time to strengthen the family bonds that had survived the betrayal. Joanna checked his email one last time. The latest report from his private investigator confirmed what he had already suspected. Heather and Gerard's attempt at a relationship had crumbled under the weight of their exposed lies and lost careers. They moved to New Hampshire, living in a small apartment. Their comfortable professional lives were destroyed by their own actions. The justice of it satisfied something deep in Joanna's soul. He had not needed to destroy them directly. Their own choices had done that. He had simply exposed the truth and let the consequences unfold naturally. Coming, he called back to Julian, standing from his desk. The past year had transformed all of them. The twins had grown stronger. Their understanding of integrity and consequences was deepened by their parents' betrayal. Mildred had recovered her confidence. Her trust was carefully rebuilt within the smaller but more honest family circle. As for Joanna, he had emerged harder in some ways, but more certain of his path. The betrayal had cost him a wife and brother, but it had given him something more valuable: authentic relationships built on truth rather than lies. He descended the stairs to find both boys waiting. Their presence was a reminder that family was not just about blood. It was about choice, about loyalty, about standing together through the worst storms. "Grandma is trying a new recipe," Shelby said, grinning. "She warned us to bring backup pizza, just in case." Joanna felt a deep satisfaction. These moments, honest, unvarnished, real, were worth more than all the perfect facades he had lost. The betrayal had stripped away pretense, leaving only truth behind. They drove to Mildred's house together, the conversation flowing easily between them. Joanna listened to his sons discuss their college plans, their summer internships, their future stretching bright and untainted before them. The past year had taught them all valuable lessons. Trust, once broken, could not be repaired. Actions carry consequences, and sometimes the most painful betrayals led to unexpected blessings. As they pulled into Mildred's driveway, Joanna reflected on how far they had come. He had lost the perfect life he thought he had, but he gained something better: a life built on honesty, strength, and unshakable bonds. The facade had crumbled, but the foundation remained strong. In the end, that was all that mattered. 5 years later, Joanna stood at the entrance of Boston College's Alumni Stadium watching graduates file into their seats. Among them were Shelby and Julian, both graduating summa cum laude. Shelby with a degree in business administration, Julian in civil engineering. Their achievements were their own, earned through merit rather than stolen money or false pretenses. The past 5 years had reshaped the Landry family landscape. Joanna had expanded Landry Construction into one of New England's largest development firms. His reputation for ruthless efficiency was only enhanced by how he had handled his personal betrayal. In business circles, the story had become legendary, a cautionary tale about crossing Joanna Landry. His phone buzzed, a message from his sister, Flora. "Just parked, saving seats for you and Mom." Flora had grown closer to the family in the aftermath. Her early warning about Heather and Gerard earned her a special place in Joanna's trust. She had become a second mother to the boys, helping them navigate the emotional aftermath of their parents' betrayal. Mildred Landry had not only recovered but thrived. At 75, she channeled her energy into establishing a foundation for victims of elder financial abuse, turning her personal tragedy into a mission. The $300,000 Heather had stolen had been repaid through civil judgments. But the real victory was in the lives the foundation had helped protect. Joanna made his way to their seats, nodding at familiar faces. The Landry name still commanded respect in Boston society, perhaps more than ever. His handling of the scandal had sent a clear message: betrayal would be met with unwavering consequences. "Did you hear about Heather?" Flora asked quietly as he sat down. Joanna had needed to keep tabs on his ex-wife and brother. Their downfall had been public enough. After the criminal charges for financial fraud, Heather had served 18 months in a minimum security prison. Her attempts to rebuild her career had failed spectacularly. No school would hire a counselor convicted of elder abuse, and her financial licenses had been permanently revoked. Last he had heard, she was working as a receptionist at a small insurance office in Manchester, New Hampshire. Gerard had fared no better. The scandal had followed him across state lines. His teaching career was permanently destroyed. He tried coaching youth sports teams, but parents inevitably discovered his history. He had ended up working construction jobs, the same industry he had once mocked Joanna for starting in. The irony was not lost on anyone. Their relationship had crumbled under the weight of their mutual destruction. Gerard had blamed Heather for keeping the twins' paternity secret. She blamed him for not standing up to Joanna. They had separated within a year of moving to New Hampshire. Their great love affair was destroyed by the very lies that had sustained it. Mom got another letter from her. Flora continued, begging to see the boys. Should I tell them? Joanna watched his sons adjusting their graduation ropes. They are adults now. Let them decide. The twins had handled the truth with remarkable resilience. Initial anger had given way to understanding, then determination. They had rejected Heather and Gerard's attempts at contact, choosing instead to forge stronger bonds with Joanna and Mildred. The stadium filled with proud families, but Joanna's attention was drawn to the empty seats where Heather and Gerard should have been. Their absence was the price of betrayal. Missing their son's greatest achievements, excluded from family celebrations, reduced to watching their children's lives unfold through social media and secondhand stories. Mildred arrived, assisted by her foundation's young director, just in time, she said, patting Joanna's hand. Shelby texted that they are about to start. The ceremony began, but Joanna's mind drifted to the future. Shelby had already accepted a position with a prestigious consulting firm, while Julian would be joining Landry Construction as a project engineer. Both boys had insisted on starting at entry-level positions, determined to earn their way, just as Joanna had. Their mother's disgrace had taught them valuable lessons about integrity and consequences. They had watched how Joanna had handled the betrayal, not with emotional outbursts or hasty revenge, but with calculated precision that ensured justice was both legal and complete. 2 rows ahead, Joanna spotted Samuel Matthews, the board member who had once suggested scaling back the company's growth. Samuel caught his eye and quickly looked away. Joanna's handling of personal betrayal had cemented his reputation in the business world. No one dared cross him. Now the dean began calling names. Joanna thought about the last update he had received about Gerard. His brother was living in a small apartment in Nashua, working as a site foreman for a local contractor. His attempts to reconcile with the family had been met with silence. Blood might be thicker than water, but betrayal dissolved all bonds. Shelby Daisy Landry, the dean announced. Joanna watched his son cross the stage, remembering the boy's words years ago. Biology does not make a father. Julian Vince Landry followed moments later. Both boys had chosen to keep the Landry name, a decision that had driven the final nail into Heather and Gerard's hopes for reconciliation. After the ceremony, surrounded by proud families taking photos, Joanna observed his sons accepting congratulations from Mildred and Flora. They have grown into strong young men, their character forged in the crucible of truth rather than comfort. His phone buzzed again, a news alert about Landry Construction's latest acquisition. Joanna smiled slightly. Success was the best revenge, but justice ensured that lessons were learned. Heather and Gerard had learned theirs the hard way. That evening, at the celebration dinner in the private room of their favorite restaurant, Joanna raised his glass to his sons. The past 5 years had proven that family was not defined by blood or biology, but by choice and loyalty. To the future, he said simply. Around the table sat the people who had proven their worth. Flora, who had chosen truth over comfortable silence. Mildred, who had turned victimhood into advocacy. And the twins, who had chosen character over comfort. As for Heather and Gerard, their futures had become cautionary tales. They lived with the consequences of their choices, watching from a distance as the family they betrayed grew stronger without them. Their great love affair, built on lies and betrayal, had crumbled into bitter regret. Joanna had ensured their punishment was both legal and complete. He had not needed to pursue personal revenge. Their own actions had destroyed them more thoroughly than any revenge could have. The systematic dismantling of their lives had been a masterclass in patience and precision. Dad, Shelby called, pulling Joanna back to the present. Julian and I have an announcement. Joanna listened as his sons detailed their plans to establish a scholarship fund for children affected by family fraud. They had taken the darker aspects of their story and, like Mildred, transformed them into something constructive. This was his true victory, not just the destruction of those who had betrayed him, but the strength of what remained. His sons had become men of integrity. His mother, a force for positive change. His sister, a pillar of family loyalty. As for Joanna himself, He had emerged not just successful, but vindicated. His response to betrayal had become a blueprint for justice, served cold and complete. In Boston's upper circles, the story was not just about infidelity and fraud. It was about consequences and the price of underestimating Joanna Landry. The evening wound down, but Joanna's mind was already on tomorrow. Success required constant vigilance, whether in business or family. He had learned that lesson well, and he taught it even better to those who dared to betray him. Heather and Gerard's destruction served as a reminder. Cross Joanna Landry, and you did not just lose a battle, you lost everything. It was a lesson the twins had learned from the other side, watching their biological parents descend into the mediocrity they had earned through their choices. 5 years had proven Joanna right. Sometimes the most painful betrayals led to the truest relationships. He had lost a wife and brother, but he gained something far more valuable, a family built on unwavering loyalty and unshakable truth. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I will see you there.